Guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today is going to be my full review of this very impressive folder from KoensCraft. Morgan Cohen is a Canadian custom knife maker, and that is his brand. And I've been following him for quite some time, and I really want and have every intention of eventually getting a fixed blade from him. He has some beautiful fixed blades. However, in the meantime, this knife came up. He developed a folder, and in his own words, he said, look, I do a lot of, sort of large Bowie style knives. I really, like that style. And he felt like, and rightly, that there weren't very many large Bowie style folders out there. They're mostly fixed blades. And so he thought, his solution would be to make one. And so he partnered with Best Tech, and the way this works is, Best Tech has built the parts. He has the parts on hand. This is available, by the way, in G10 or carbon fiber. And then he goes ahead, builds the knife as they're ordered, sharpens them, and sends them out. So pretty cool business model. It allows us as enthusiasts to get something from a custom maker that has had his hands on it, that's got some of his influence on it, but which is at a much lower price point and much more widely available, because you can, Best Tech can produce fairly large numbers fairly quickly. So I really think that's an interesting business model, and we've seen a number of different makers kind of partner with Best Tech. At Purvis Blades is probably one of the more well-known ones, and repeatedly the feedback that I hear from those makers is they're very impressed with the job that Best Tech does. So pretty cool offering, and when this came around, they've only been available for a few months. I was pretty stoked. I loved the look of this design. I love the Bowie blade in a folder. I just find this such a clean, attractive design. I love the tie-in here. It just anything. Anyway, very traditional blade shape, of course, but still very modern looking and simple. Morgan, if you ever watch this video, all I can say is you have nailed this design. It's a fantastic, beautiful knife. I have had a number of people ask me, this is a large knife, so let me give you the numbers, and then I'll point out what I've been asked a number of times. So this is 9 7/8 inches. It's a big knife, 4 1/4 inch blade, 5 5/8 closed. Okay, 4-inch grip area, which is in here. And the weight on this, now this is something that I've got to say is pretty stinking cool. So this very large folder with a 4 1/4 inch blade only weighs in at 5.3 ounces. That's incredible. And that means that this carries so comfortably, you would not believe it. You can carry this knife and have this massive orange blade in your pocket and literally forget you even have it. It's so comfortable. From that perspective. Now, let me add, I did have a number of people ask me, and as I was about to say there, Morgan, if you ever watch this, I think there's going to be quite a strong demand for a smaller version of this knife. I mentioned in the first impressions video that he has no plans to do a smaller version, and all I would say is, if you're really interested in that, go touch base with him on Instagram to give him an idea that maybe it would be worthwhile to do a smaller version. I'm not sure if you'd have to change something around the grip area here, because there's 4 inches of grip area here, but if you shrunk this down, you could see how in this exact design, if you just start going this way, it's very quickly going to get a little cramped there for your fingers. But there's lots of space back here that could be reworked in some way. Anyway, that's the only thing I'm going to say about the small, other than just that I've had a number of you on Instagram and even on Facebook and other places say, hey, is there going to be a small version, because I'd be really interested. And the answer to that is no. But if you're really interested in that, give Morgan a follow. He is going to, I'll put a link to his Instagram account, by the way, down below, because he is going to do a smaller folder next year. Now, I don't know if next year means 2020 or 2021, because part of this discussion took place, sort of at that, December, January type of time of year. So, kind of be aware of that and be looking for that. And I look forward to whatever he comes up with next, because honestly, this is highly attractive. He's got a great eye for design here and really, really well built. This, we'll get into that as we kind of work our way through the details. So let's start with that now. The blade here is S35VN with a stonewash finish on the bevels there and satin flats. Really nice top swedge, very cool Bowie style blade shape, including the fuller here, which really ties the whole knife together very, very nicely. We've got a good thin edge here, very slight recurve. Now, you know, I'm of mixed minds on that recurve. I will say this about it. I do kind of like the way it flows with the blade, but it's not so pronounced that if you're sharpening on, say, flat sharpening stones, it's going to give you a problem. So it's kind of a best of both worlds situation there. You can see his maker's mark over on this side. And the last thing I will say, there is a very slight smile there with where the sharpened edge runs into the plunge grind, but it's very, very slight, really almost not noticeable. So in terms of, you know, the details on this blade, very, very nicely done. In terms of usefulness, again, this is great. Now there's tons of cutting edge here, so even cutting large stuff, you know, we picked up some apples at the house the other week, and they were like 5-inch. They're just these massive apples. I would cut one and the kids would each eat half of it, and there'd still be some left over. Anyway, even cutting a giant apple like that, this blade worked really, really well. It is ground high enough and it's thin enough behind the edge that it slices quite nicely. And so, well, and the blade stock's not crazy thick either, maybe a little over 1/8 of an inch there. So yeah, in terms of usefulness, again, very, very nice. So, I mean, other than when I look at a blade, I want a blade that's cool, that looks awesome, and that's highly useful. And this does all of those things. Now, the one thing I will say is, yes, this blade is going to be a little scary. It's not what I would call a sheeple-friendly blade. But it depends on where you are and who you are. And I've often had this conversation. If you're the guy who your friends kind of know is a knife guy, then they're not going to be put off by this. Yeah, you know, if you're walking through Walmart and you decide to cut open a package and you whip this thing out and start cutting on something, it could be a little off-putting to some people. But again, that's going to depend what part of the world you live in and what kind of people are around you. You know, if you carry this to the office and use it to open your mail, you know, if your friends know you, if the people in the office know you're kind of a knife guy and you've got that kind of stuff, then it's probably going to be no big deal. But again, it could be a little off-putting. For my own purposes, as a knife enthusiast, I think this is fantastic. It's a beautiful design. I love the combination of sort of a traditional blade shape here in a very modern, clean design. It just really, really does it for me. Moving on to the rest of the knife here in terms of function, let's talk about lockup and deployment. So you can see nice early lockup there. I will tell you, this is very, very smooth. Thumb studs are comfortable and accessible, and boy, that flips open with authority. So give that a flick, and yeah, you've got a quick deploying knife there. This is, of course, on bearings, titanium frame lock with a lock bar insert, which is about what we expect from, you know, a modern folder these days. The lock bar is easy to access. It's very comfortable, as are the thumb studs, and it's a very, very smooth pivot. I'll let you check that out there as well. So very, very nicely done. I will say I cannot spidey flick this. The fuller is really a design feature. It's not functional in any way. I can sort of, let's see, maybe I can spidey flick it. There we go. I can. I tried before making the video and I couldn't do it. So I don't know what I'm doing right now. But I wouldn't count on being able to do that. It's not a super deep cut there, so you may or may not be able to get a finger or an edge of a finger in there to spidey flick that open. In terms of how the action feels, very, very nice. In terms of that is in terms of smoothness and speed. Now, the other thing I always care about is sort of comfort and ergonomics. And again, that's really, really well done. The thumb studs are accessible. They deploy quickly. The lock bar the tension is just right. There's nothing uncomfortable. This is easily a knife that you could sit on the couch and just kind of flick all day without having any issues. See how I do left-handed here. There you go. So that's lockup and deployment. Very, very well done. Moving on now to the handle itself and the construction. We have a style of construction that I really, really like. So we've got titanium bead blasted on the lock side. Over here on the show side, mine is G10. There is a carbon fiber version as well. I didn't know that was that hard to say. Got a bit of jimping in two locations here and here. And that jimping, I have to say, is pretty much perfect. Like, it's not uncomfortable. It doesn't, cut your skin or anything like that, but it definitely gives you some confidence and really locks you into the handle. Other little pieces here that we ought to notice. First, it is milled out internally to save some weight. And, the weight on this, again, is very, very nice. I love the choice to go with just G10 on this side. It cuts down the weight. G10 is incredibly tough and durable, so it doesn't, hurt the performance at all, but it really saves some weight and gets this down to that very comfortable 5 ounces, which is fantastic. We've got an integrated lanyard hole here, which is good. Doesn't damage the design in any way. In fact, it fits in very nicely. And that really, really nicely milled clip. And I've got to say, we've heard others, especially Rob used to say this a lot, the Apostle P, that the milled clips, he kind of wished they would go away. And I would always say, look, I get that sometimes they get messed up, but they shouldn't be. It can be done where you do a milled clip and it works really well. And this one absolutely does. And I've ranted about that before. There's really no reason to get it wrong because it's just a matter of trying to put the knife in your pocket. If it goes in, you've done the clip right. If it doesn't, then you need to do something different. And this goes in and out of pocket very, very well. Again, I guess adding to how easy and enjoyable this is to carry around, and it really, really is. So from the handle discussion, we've got a handle that looks great, that's well put together, fit and finish is absolutely spot on, and which feels fantastic in hand. Is a really, really nice balance. It's comfortable, it's grippy, it's confidence inspiring. It's, those are all the things that I really want to see in a handle. I want to see a handle that feels like I could really get some work done, and absolutely this checks all the boxes. Okay, so now let's get to a few comparisons. This is a knife that a number of you said, Kevin, you should love this knife because there's a lot of knives in your collection that we know you enjoy that are very similar. One being the Recon 1. A number of people brought up the Recon 1. They're like, Kevin, you love the Recon 1. You should love that. Another one being the Crooked River. Let's see if I can kind of move these, get all of them on the screen. There we go. So you can see how this compares to those two knives. Here's something that I've got to say is super impressive. This knife weighs about the same as these. In fact, it's a little lighter than the Crooked River, which is nuts. Okay, so really, really impressive in terms of the size to weight ratio on this knife. Now, it's not really in a price class similar to the Recon 1. This guy sits at around $300. I think $320. Don't hold me to this, but I think they're $320 for the G10 version. So, in terms of cost, it would be very similar to this knife by the time I've added those aftermarket scales. What else have we got here? Let's throw in another Benchmade, another large tactical folder. The Benchmade Contigo. You can see how it stacks up against the Contigo. And I've got to say this handle is definitely more comfortable. A number of you commented that, that proud jimping up from the handle there is a little rough on the fingers. This definitely doesn't have that. Now there are a couple knives that I kind of put in a similar category or a similar quality class. The Riot Torrent, and then I've got the WE Knives 037 here. So all of these are kind of overseas production. This, of course, is hand assembled by the maker, which is definitely a significant difference. That's not insignificant at all. But the quality on this is actually really, really impressive. It's very much like the Riot in terms of just feel and how tight and clean everything is on this knife. So I've got to give a lot of credit, and perhaps that's because that's normally I would put Best Tech kind of one step below WE, sort of similar to say Kaiser or some other overseas makers. This is exceptionally good. It's really, really impressive for a Best Tech, and likely that's because Best Tech is not doing the actual build. They're making the parts, and each of these is going to be built by hand by the maker, which he can really tweak it and get everything exactly right. So those are the comparisons I've got for you. overall, what do I think of this knife? Well, guys, if you've been watching, you know I'm really, really impressed. The design is absolutely beautiful. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous knife. It is quite large, so obviously, number one, this knife is not for everyone. So, you know, if a big knife to you is the Spyderco, is something from the Spyderco Sage series, well, yeah, you're not going to like this knife, okay? However, if you like larger stuff, if you like the Recon One, if you like some of those Benchmates that I showed you, this is fantastic. It's really, really well put together. And probably one of the best things about this gives anyone who likes a larger knife the ability to carry something larger without the weight and bulk and pocket that's normally associated with a 10-inch knife. Like this thing being 5 ounces is so, so impressive. It's just really, really nice. The other thing, of course, is the quality and the design overall. If you're a knife enthusiast, okay, if you're not in love with the Recon One because it's just too, you know, simple and it doesn't scratch that itch for that high-end folder that you really like, this absolutely does that. It's really well put together. It just screams quality and precision, and it's so enjoyable for that reason as well. So yeah, if you're a fan of this size of knife and this style really speaks to you, it's an easy recommend to pick up a Koen Keen. I'm very, very impressed with it. All right, thanks guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to go check out Morgan on Instagram and give him a follow so you can see what he's doing and be around. If you're one of those guys who asked for the smaller folder, he does have that in mind, but it's going to be a little bit of a wait. So go and give him a follow so you don't miss out on that either. All right, again, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.